What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here with Cheesehead TV, coming to you live with our Packers Daily Chat. What's up, everyone? It's Tuesday. It's the Packers Players' Day off, but that doesn't mean that we don't chat some Packers here at Cheesehead TV on YouTube, Facebook, wherever the hell you're finding us. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining me live here on the chat. Amazing. So many people chiming in already. Travis, in all caps, mind you, saying McCarthy has got to go. Travis, I recommend decaf. There are just as many decaffeinated brands in the market today that taste just as good as the real thing. Try it. Bud says, Packers have a trust problem, Rodgers to receivers and coach to his players. I agree with your assessment, Bud. That game last night made me sick, says Julian. Obviously in reference to the Chiefs-Rams game, 50 burgers being dropped. I will admit it wasn't exactly to my taste, but I know a lot of people like it. Fantasy players, the new wave of the NFL. This is what the NFL wants. Not a lot of defense, whole lot of offense. It's the wave of the future. Get used to it. Yo, Nagler, what's up? What's up? Thanks for joining me. I'm ready for a deep run. Well, if it's going to happen, it's got to start Sunday. Look, I know I keep hyping Sunday night as kind of the season, because it kind of is. If they lose this game, yes, they could still go on a bit of a run at the end of the season. Their schedule does set up favorably. But look, a lot of that will be fool's gold. It would be great if they can beat up on the Arizonas and Atlantas of the world, and even those are no given. But if they don't win every game from here on out, getting to the playoffs and making any kind of noise is really kind of a fantasy. So I would love nothing more than for the season to suddenly start turning around starting Sunday night. But they got to show it, they got to do it, and they got to prove it down after down for a complete 60 minutes, because that is something that has mostly eluded this team the entire year. All of 2018 has been one gigantic episode of the Packers shooting themselves in the foot repeatedly. Whether that's coaching, play on the field, it doesn't matter. They've all been suspect. They've all been egregious at one point or another. They have to coalesce on Sunday night in a place where they haven't done a whole lot of coalescing. Whether that's in the new building, the old building, doesn't matter. Minnesota has been a traditional house of horrors for the Packers franchise. They've got to overcome all of that and turn their season around on Sunday night. Has it felt like to anyone that the season really never started? It's been an odd year. I don't know about that. I do think that they have looked better since the break. They just haven't been able to finish. They haven't been able to play that complete game that I'm talking about. I get what you're saying as far as it's been kind of a herky-jerky season. Rodgers' injury, their inability to kind of put things together on offense has made it feel off. But to me, they've looked like they have the makings of a team that could go on a run since the break. Since they came out of the bye week at the Rams game, I thought they've got the potential to do something. They just have yet to put it all together. Oh, Zek Tech, thanks for all the great content. Thank you for checking it out. Is Kyler Fackrell a full-time starter next season? Good question, Julian. I think he's in contention to be. I don't think they'll be settling for him anytime soon. I do think he'll be in the mix, but I'd be very surprised if they didn't make some kind of moves this offseason to try and bolster their edge position. Does last year's collarbone injury affect Rodgers in any way? I know he won't admit it. Interesting to hear your thoughts. I have to think they do. I have to think it's a combination of the collarbone and the knee from week one, all playing into. I posted something on Twitter a little while ago. The play in the first quarter to Davante Adams up the left sideline, which is a 40-yard gain. It's a nice play, but it should have been an easy touchdown. And in vintage Rodgers would have made a throw that was, an easy touchdown. It's clear that he's favoring his plant leg, not wanting to step into it. It's throwing sidearm. Now, maybe the collarbone is still, bothersome. We'll never really know because, as you say, he'll never admit it. He was asked about the knee after the game, and he says he's A+, no problems, 100%. I just have to think the combination of the knee and the collarbone are playing into it a little bit. Now, there's decision-making. There are throws he's just not hitting. The one that he threw into the ground on 3rd and 2 in the fourth quarter, I don't think that was either of the injuries. I just think he kind of missed that throw, and that's something that you haven't traditionally seen from Rodgers. But I would be absolutely shocked, and I'd be very hard-pressed to believe that those injuries aren't playing into his subpar performances intermittently throughout the season. Is Fackrell's improvement because of himself or Pettine's scheme or the linebacker coach? Katie, I would think it's a combination of everything. I do think the biggest part of it is his natural maturation, if you will. Coming into his third season, he's finally kind of, quote, putting it together. Mike McCarthy mentioned that yesterday. I mean, season 3 is traditionally when a lot of players start to take off. It's a young man's game. It's a young man's league. We've seen things kind of happen earlier for a lot of players, but for whatever reason, Kyler's starting to put it together now, and heck, he's really helping the Packers in doing so. But you got to give the coaching staff a little bit of credit, right? We always harp on the coaches when things don't work. So when somebody finally does kind of click, I think you got to give Pettine and his guys some of the kudos there. May just be me, but have you noticed when Rodgers throws now, it seems more of a flick of the wrist and less full power throws? Tony, I couldn't agree more. Funnily enough, I can't remember who it is, but there's somebody who covers the Broncos that tweeted it after that Thursday night game in Seattle, who said he's never seen Rodgers so casual in his throwing. And I think that's a good description, kind of alluding to what you say there. A lot less kind of stepping into it, using his full body to give the power to the throw, much more flick of the wrist, flicking it. And those are throws that he used to make with ease. That's stuff he used to complete down the field, leading his receivers. He didn't have a problem. But for whatever reason, if it's not because he's stepping into it, maybe it's the collarbone, who knows? If it's father time catching up to him, but those throws are not there for him anymore. They just aren't. And he seems to kind of favor that style. And it's great when it works, and you can be productive with it. You've seen, like I said, a 40-yard completion is nothing to sneeze at. But when it comes at the expense on a play that should have been a touchdown, that becomes an issue, especially in a drive that ended with a missed field goal. Cole Madison going to be on the team next year, or is he done? Bully, that's absolutely TBD. I'd be surprised at this point if he joined the team, but there's no real definitive answer to that yet. Thoughts on Josh Jackson? William, I think you see a lot of promise there. I do think he's raw. I do think you've seen him taken advantage of a couple of times in man coverage, but it doesn't mean he can't improve. You can't all be Jair Alexander out of the box. But I do think he's talented and will help this team in the future. Let's see. All the mentioned issues with Rodgers is why we need the short, quick passing game. Daniel, I couldn't agree more. I've been calling for it and calling for it and calling for it. And it's just brutal to have to watch the game film week after week, seeing these long developing routes, guys deep down the field, Rodgers holding the ball, and just none of that. They don't need any of that. Just get the ball out of his hands. Good thing they extended him. Here's the thing. People keep asking about the extension for Rodgers. Look, don't get it twisted. Rodgers is worth every penny. He will be down the line. Whatever happens throughout this season, they will reset and they will come back next year, whether it's Mike McCarthy or someone else, and Aaron Rodgers will be back to dominating the league. It's clear that this system is not working. Rodgers, whether it's the injury, his mindset, his relationship with the coach, those are things that Mark Murphy is going to have to take into consideration at the end of the year. But Rodgers is still a very good to great quarterback when he is on. He has been off a lot this year. Some of that is his own fault. Some of that is his coach's fault. But make no mistake, he is still better than most quarterbacks in the league. He is just not playing up to that level consistently. It is up to his coaching staff to get him there. Now, the quick passing game may help in that regard, but whatever it may be, whether it's feeding the running back a little bit more, taking some of the pressure off that quarterback, he is still light years better than any other option they would have had, be it through the draft or through free agency or trying to make a trade in the next 5 years. So I get that you don't look at the salary and think, oh, wow, that guy I'm watching on Sundays is worth all that money. But Rodgers is worth all that money. He is your figurehead. The entire franchise is built around him and will continue to be so for the next several years. Let's head over to Twitter. Let's see what's on people's minds over here in the tweet machine. Matt starts us off by asking, after watching last night's game, is there really a point in paying defensive players multi-million-dollar contracts? Defense went from winning championships to being almost obsolete. Aaron Donald-type players can tear it up on the field, and still give up 50. Matt, I would caution being a prisoner of the moment. Yes, both teams gave up a lot of points, a lot of yardage. Aaron Donald was on the field, etc. I would go back and look at what actually transpired on the defensive side of the ball for both of those teams. I thought Lewis over there at ESPN put up something earlier this afternoon which really shed a lot of light. A lot of simplistic coverages, a lot of easy completions due to the fact that their quarterbacks were allowed to basically sit back and find open receivers. That's not something that's going to be sustainable. That's not something you're going to see in the playoffs. I think both of those teams played scared on defense because they wanted to keep everything in front of them. They wanted to keep things simplistic because they knew about the prolific offense across the way from them. But look how the Packers handled the Rams. They didn't march up and down the field on the Packers. I think they will face tougher tests, those offenses will, not only down the stretch this season, but certainly in the playoffs. I think Khalil Mack is worth every dollar he was paid. I think Aaron Donald was as well. You just have to be smart about where you're allocating those funds. But let's slow down on defense went from winning championships to obsolete. That's a bit much. Defenses will still have a say down the stretch this season. Trust me on that. Who did Gutekunst hire as his assistant scouts? I remember him waiting for the draft to be over before filling out the staff. Ryan, the one big hire, one of the hires he made was Pat Moore, who was a area scout with the Cleveland Browns for about 5 years. Before that, he was in college. He was a coach. But Pat came over and is a college scout for the Packers now. He was the one move. He made a lot of other moves, which were essentially kind of promoting people from within, but Pat was the outside hire. Hey, Aaron, it seems to me that the offense has completely fallen apart twice in the past few years. The only commonality? No Jordy Nelson. Andrew, I wouldn't say that it was completely because of Jordy Nelson, but I do think the component of Aaron Rodgers losing the one guy he trusts implicitly, that certainly has played a role. There's no doubt about it. But you don't have to go far. Just go look at Jordy's time in Oakland to see that I don't think Jordy Nelson, the receiver, is what they miss. They certainly miss the relationship with Aaron Rodgers. There's no doubt about that. Odd question here, but is it me, or does Rodgers' miracle comeback week 1 and comeback versus the 49ers kind of make it seem this season is destined for something amazing still? Am I reading too much into that? Yes, you're reading too much into that. What do you think Mike McCarthy was thinking as he watched the Chiefs go for it on 4th and 2 last night? Oh, you are assuming that Mike McCarthy was watching the game last night. Now, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. He often told us in the media auditorium that he didn't watch those games, but maybe he was. And I'm sure if he did, he was thinking, oh boy, there goes Andy going for it on 4th and 2. I'm sure I'm going to catch hell for this. And then he's proceeded on with his evening. Brian, love me some Packers Daley. Thanks, Brian. Why is this team so bad at not being able to overcome the things that go wrong? In the past, they seem to be able to come up with something, not so much anymore. Brian, I think a large part of that is, and I get what you're saying, I think a large part of that is the fact that Rodgers is working with a lot of guys during this stretch, these last few games, a lot of guys that he doesn't have a lot of trust in, he doesn't have a lot of experience with. He's not, doesn't know them like the back of his hand like he would have with a Jordy Nelson, a Randall Cobb, even a Geronimo Allison, somebody he trusted implicitly. You take away those three components, and he's throwing to Jimmy Graham, who is talented, but he has no relationship with. He has no rapport with. We've seen several times this year where they haven't been on the same page, where Rodgers expects Jimmy to sit it down in the zone, and Jimmy keeps floating away. Equanimeous St. Brown on the 3rd down on Thursday night. Rodgers goes to him over the middle of the field, expecting him to sit down between defenders. St. Brown keeps going, and it's an incomplete pass. Those instances keep popping up. And I think, more than anything, once things break down, and once they do have these moments where they fall behind or something goes wrong, they don't have that experience to draw from to kind of get back on the same page. You saw that huge completion to Davante Adams in the 4th quarter that ended in a field goal. That is Rodgers essentially going, I'm going to the one guy I know and trust. And he did, and he made a play for him. But you can't do that every season, every series, every set of downs, But at some point, Rodgers is going to go, okay, I'm just going to go find my guy. which is what he did there. But overall, in regards to what you're talking about here, I got to think there's a whole lot of, just kind of, not novelty, but there's just not a lot of familiarity there. And until these guys have a lot more time under their belts, and that's why I say with Rodgers, people talking about his contract and not being worth it, etc. Let's give it some time. You look at those offenses last night, those players have put in so much time together to achieve that level. Rodgers is out there working with guys who are first-year NFL players. They haven't logged a whole lot of time in this offense with this quarterback, etc. Now, obviously, yes, no offense is completely together. The Rams have Cooper Kupp on IR, etc. But there are still a lot more kind of reps to be had for this Packers offense before they are a finely oiled machine, at least as they are constituted right now, given the injury situation. All right, let's head back to the live chat. Who did the Packers bring in this week? Well, they signed a wide receiver to the practice squad. But as far as defensive line help, which you have to assume they're going to be looking for, you're going to have to wait and see. Probably find out tomorrow, if not later today. Is Aaron Donald the best defensive player of his generation? Dude is a beast. I don't know, Julian. I would probably put J.J. Watt's 3-year span up against Donald any day, but I think they're both fantastic. What's the missing part on defense to make them even better? Pettin obviously improved the defense, but it feels like something is missing. I would say two things. Number one, a better inside-out pursuit ability, basically from everyone, but essentially from any inside linebacker not named Blake Martinez. I think Blake does a lot of good work, obviously, but whether it's Morrison, whether it's Burks, whoever, those guys are getting taken advantage of when teams go with base personnel or power personnel. The Packers counter with those guys, and then they get taken advantage of in the passing game. And then the other thing is clearly that ability on the edge, the ability to collapse the pocket. And I don't even think you need to be saying, oh, these guys got to have more sacks, because I think they're sacking the quarterback at a pretty regular rate, a pretty decent rate when you look across the NFL comparatively. But the ability to disrupt the quarterback, they've had a lot of coverage sacks this year. I think the secondary is playing well. There's a lot of moving parts there. I think it will continue to improve throughout the years. But more than anything, I think they need another body up front who's disruptive, whether that's interior or exterior. More than anything, somebody who can disrupt the quarterback with more regularity. Is Graham a problem in general, or does Mike just not use him effectively? I don't see a lot of people talking about Graham's usage or lack thereof. He's been using him the same as he used Jared Cook, the same as he used, or tried to use Martellus Bennett, almost the same way he used Jermichael Finley. He hasn't split him out as much as I thought he would this year. But other than that, I think, some of it's on Rodgers, some of it's on other teams knowing how to take him away. I don't think it's this great misuse of an asset. I do think he's older. He's not as effective as he once was. But the one kind of quibble I would have is I would like to see him split out a little bit more as a wide receiver, gone to a little bit more on third downs from the slot or split out wide. But for the most part, I think they've used him pretty well. Are the Pack going to win this weekend? Peter, I have no idea. I wish I knew. I hope they do, but I have no clue. You never know with this team who's going to show up, how they're going to show up. There are some other games where you feel it. I felt really good about the Packers heading into New England. That was the last time I felt really good about this team. Coming off that Rams win, that's a game they should have won. If Montgomery doesn't fumble there at the end, I feel pretty confident that Rodgers would have driven them down and gotten the W. Heading into New England, I thought they matched up well with New England, and they did until it was 17-17 and Aaron Jones fumbled, and then it all fell apart. And since that moment, I haven't felt great about this team, and I haven't been able to really get a good handle on them. I want to feel their pulse, so to speak. So it's a great mystery to me what's going to happen on Sunday night. I don't, hold out a lot of hope, because Minnesota has just been bad news in general for the Packers. That building is really hard to play in. Having been there the last few years, was there last year, was there the first game the Packers played, was the first regular season game played in that building. It is insane. The noise is incredible. It hurts on third down when they start getting loud and start pumping that stupid horn. But it makes it tough. It makes it tough on a visiting team. And it makes it particularly tough on a team like the Packers, who try to do so much at the line of scrimmage, leave their tackles on so many islands. It's just a hard way to operate in that kind of environment. So I'm hoping for the best, but I'm not getting too crazy. I'm not getting Banky level nuts here in my optimism for Sunday night. I felt really good about this team in the preseason, Travis. I think a lot of us did. Minnesota seems to be waffling at the same time. Perhaps we finally get right this weekend. Daniel, I mean, that's the thing. You can't look at Minnesota and be scared of that team. I'm more scared of the environment that they're stepping into than I am the actual football team they're facing. I do think there's a lot of talent, especially on that defensive side for Minnesota, but you can't look at Kirk Cousins and tell me you're scared of him as a quarterback. You go back and you watch week 2, obviously you go through an NFL season, teams change a lot from week 2 to week 12, and it's no different between these two teams. But I like the Packers a lot more right now than I liked that matchup then in Lambeau in week 2. The biggest difference, obviously, for the Packers is they have Aaron Jones now. So I'll be interested to see how much they ride him. But yeah, the Vikings don't scare me as a team, but playing in Minnesota, in prime time, all the pressure, that gets to me a little bit. Can they win this week? Travis, of course they can win this week. Bakhtiari or Chad Clifton at this point in their careers? Whew, Ernesto, that's a really good question. Man, I'd probably take Clifton just by a nose, but Bakhtiari is lights out. There's no doubt about it. Wilkerson would be nice to have this year. I was pumped on his signing. Yeah, Bully, that's a tough one. They really miss him in the interior there. I hope he heals up, and I would like to see them bring him back on another short deal. I mean, I don't know if he'll be amiable to that, though. I don't know what his options will be in free agency. Has Cousins ever won a primetime game? He has, but they have been few and far between. Does McCarthy choose to ignore the problem on the offense, or his offense just sucks overall? I don't think his offense sucks. I mean, it's been productive. He didn't fumble in New England. He didn't fumble in L.A. They move the ball up and down the field, and then they get delayed game penalties, or they fumble, or they have a holding call, or they get a block in the back. That's not on McCarthy. Look, I know we all watched 50 points be put up in Madden come to life last night, but let's get a hold of ourselves here. You want to see an offense that sucks? Go watch the Buffalo Bills. Go watch the New York Jets. I live in New York. I got to watch that crap all the time. The Packers' offense doesn't suck. It just isn't executing. It's on the players. Jimmy's and Joe's, not X's and O's. That's all I can say about that. Clowney next year? I mean, they'll have the cap room. That said, I doubt it. Rodgers isn't even the Aaron that the Packers need most right now. More Jones, please. Could not agree more. We'll see if Mike McCarthy agrees on Sunday night. All right, everybody, I'm going to have to jump. Thank you so much for all the questions. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to yours. You guys are absolutely amazing, showing up here each and every day. If you're on YouTube, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends to subscribe to the channel, tell your family at Thanksgiving, you know what? I watch this nerd on Cheesehead TV talk about the Packers every day. He's awesome. You should subscribe, even if you don't mean it. It'd be nice to have Grandma as a subscriber here at Cheesehead TV. On Facebook, please share, tell your friends, join our Patreon. We may have something a little special for Thanksgiving for our patrons over on Patreon. So sign up now before we go down that road. Packer transplants tomorrow. Corey's back. So it'll be Corey and I yelling at each other about the Packers for a good hour. So hope you can join us tomorrow for that. In the meantime, have a great night.